seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat, then I ain't taking, son.
So this is, Sabacc?
Sabacc.
What is up, y'all? Welcome back to Sabacc the Block. This is our review of the finale of Andor. The first season is officially over. I'm here with RB3 in the house to talk about this show, this season, and the season finale. I want to start with the season finale, obviously, RB3, because we've been praising the show, and it's always about at least trying to nail the ending as best you can. Try to nail the landing, because I feel like a lot of shows have a lot of amazing episodes, and then at the end they kind of fumble their way to the finish line or kind of fumble their way to the end zone. But I feel like this show tried their hardest to nail it. And in your opinion, did Andor nail this season finale?
I did think Andor nailed the season finale. I think it did a really good job. It wasn't the most mind-blowing finale, or wasn't the most, extra over the top, Star Wars finale that you may or may not have come to expect. But I thought it was perfect for the journey that Cassian Andor was on. The people of Ferrix were on. A lot of the other side characters who we meet, Deidre, Syrah, who we've been talking about extensively on the show. So yeah, I think it gave the full narrative arc to a lot of these characters and kind of opened up a lot of new perspectives to the Empire, to everything that's going on with the angle of impression. So I thought it was really great. And I loved, and we're going to talk about the things that we loved, but I really, really loved seeing my boy Nemec's testimonial being read back in that one scene. That was one of the most beautiful monologues I think we've gotten in Star Wars history. So just for that moment alone, I think is worth everything.
There was a lot of incredible monologues in this episode, kind of low-key underrated and under the radar, in my opinion. Obviously, Nemec's is one of them. I think Marva's is actually, I think Nemec's going to get a lot of praise, but I think Marva's, the first Marva's one, the one that she tells to Andor through Brasso, which is Andor's homie, the big homie, that one to me, I was like, yo, this is some crazy fire monologuing right here. So yeah, I'm with you. I feel like it obviously wasn't like everything is wrapping up, everything is shooting on 20 cylinders, and everyone's like kicking ass, and it's amazing and it's incredible and it's epic and the score is going. It wasn't like an episode 7 kind of thing. It was a much more calmer, much more like the first 4 episodes did with Andor, as far as delivering a finale that is much more contemplative, much more centered on Cassian and on Ferrix, less centered on the bigger picture galactical battle kind of thing, and more centered on how to start a revolution inside your own home, inside your own planet, and inside this world that you live in, and how to get that spark started. It was more about that little spark than it is essentially a fire burning, which works so well for the show, but it isn't necessarily, like you said, a crazy huge Star Wars finale, which I think the more I'm going to rewatch it, the more I'm going to appreciate it. I think part of that too is like the idea of season 2, and season 2 is coming out. It's probably going to hit a couple of those notes that we wanted to hit in this finale, specifically about other characters around Cassian. But I feel like it did a really good job balancing all that. Let's get to the highlights of this episode, RB3. You already mentioned one of them, which is Nemec's manifesto that he wrote, coming back to Cassian actually reading it, and this being one of many sparks, because I want to get to that spark, because the first one that he gets is Marva's last words to Cassian, which is what I just referenced right now. Through Brasso, Marva says, tell him that he feels everything he needs to feel and he knows everything he needs to know. And when he combines those two things together, he will be an unstoppable force for good. And when I heard that, I was like, that's a bar. Those are bars, because I really do feel like that's what it is. It's a combination of knowledge and emotion, knowing in your heart what is right, and at the same time combining that with what you were raised with and what you know, and using that to fight and to fight back and to start this revolution. That was the first spark. The second spark was knowing that Bix was trapped for him and was imprisoned because of him, and knowing that he had the ability to rescue Bix, now that he has the knowledge that he has, and now that he has the fire and passion that he has that Marva instilled in him. So it's those two combinations of like, wait a minute, I can beat these guys, plus the combination of like, I'm pissed because this is what my mom is telling me, and I feel this rage and this anger. Where do I place this righteous anger? And it's just that perfect combination of all those things coming together. And then he reads Nemik's manifesto. So how'd you feel about everything just clarifying inside of Cassian's mind to this finale?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was brave. I thought it was powerful. And I thought, how you were talking about his main mission being to free Bix. We saw him already have a prison break on his own in a much more like higher security kind of situation.
He's like, yo, this is easy money. Right.
And that's, I mean, everybody's literally telling him like, yo, you shouldn't be here. You got to go. But the one thing he sticks to is, saving Bix. I think, obviously he was trying to help B2. I think he was trying to really just help generally the people who he was trying to help. Yeah. Mostly everybody was self-dependent on their own, which I thought was good. And again, we talk about the people of Ferrix, how their frustration and they had their spark, which we're going to talk about a little later. But I think when, I think it's an interesting dichotomy of seeing how the people had their own kind of revolution externally, but Andor was having his kind of own revolution internally with him saving Bix, but leaving immediately. But you already tell that switch in his mind is already set. And I think we're speaking to what we're going to see in season 2. I think the first half of the whole series, I'm just going to call it the whole series now, with the season 1 and season 2 that we're going to get, the first half is really that story of like denial, really that story of, not accepting the path, refusing the call to action. But I think the next season is full action. I think that's what, when you're indicating that line of the combination of knowledge and emotion, I think that is really going to play the biggest part into who we're going to see next season, how we're going to see them interact in the space. And I think how a lot of these characters interacted when seeing Cassian, honestly, we're going to talk about how, Luthen and Cinta and Val, like how they were all caught up in the Ferrix thing. But at the end of the day, they're still part of the revolution too. They're still part of the rebellion too. So they felt that spark as well.
Yeah, it was all based around Cassian, this entire episode, whether it was the ISB or whether it was Luthen's rebels trying to hunt him down. Everyone's trying to get at him, or even his own people were trying to find him just to let him know what was going on. So it was essentially all about his character and his inner turmoil coming out inside the people of Ferrix, because the people of Ferrix received that final message of Marva. How'd you feel about that final message of Marva basically being like, yo, pop off to the people of Ferrix and telling them to fight back? And they listened right away in her own funeral, fighting back against the Empire. And then this leading to this, crazy rebellion that starts with Ferrix.
Well, I mean, that moment reminded me a lot of, so like in civil rights movements where the police are standing right next to protesters and activists who are giving speeches, basically saying, F the police, all cops are bad and stuff like that. And, the police are sitting there and taking it. And a lot of times when we see in the case of Andor, and we see in the case of a lot of instances of police versus protesters, the police started the incident, right? Because the dude from the Empire went in and threw the coat over B2 Emo when he was given
through B2 as well. Yeah.
And so that's obviously,
and he's a member of the community, bro.
B2 Exactly. People felt that. I mean, people felt that, and people felt like that was him disrespecting Marva in a moment where they're supposed to be honoring her, right? So it's like how, for one, when you're talking about the actual lines and the dialogue and the inspiration, I felt inspired, just listening from my home and everything. And I love that the projection made her image like so much larger than life. Like she was towering over 2 or 3 buildings, showing how the impact of, it was almost like when Palpatine or the Emperor, when the emperors are like talking through the projection, they're like massively way bigger than the thing. I thought it was like a really good allusion to that. How the power of the revolution is equally as powerful as the oppressor, right? And I think putting them on the same level is good. And I think that's the whole message of the entire episode, like how on the ground level in the contained area like Ferrix, when it's just the people versus the authority, the people versus the police, the people versus the Nazis or whatever. The people are gonna stand up and they're gonna fight, and there are gonna be a lot of losses, and we see a lot of losses. We see a lot of like brutality happening to the people of Ferrix, but it ultimately ends up being worth it at the, or I think was going to be worth it at the end. We don't really see the end result of everything now, but I think just like Nemex's statement, any spark is a trouble to the Empire.
Yeah, and there's something he says in there. I wish I memorized it, but I didn't, obviously, because I've only seen the episode once, where he says, it'll be just one thing that tipples them over, that tops them over, or that breaks them over, something like that. Like, it really makes it seem like it'll just be like one more drop of water that'll break the dam. And I feel like that's part of what Nemec was saying as well. But it's also kind of like a very raw, realistic way that a revolution starts, like you said, RB3, with the crazy Imperial commander yelling open fire. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I think we both saw that coming, right? I was like, there's no way they're going to let this slide. They're going to start killing people. And they sure did. They opened fire on the crowd, on just people, which is essentially what we expected.
Just like Pat Bev was just shoulder checked your man Dante Aiden last night.
Yeah, I mean he's Empire, bro. We should
Deontay was the Empire. Deontay was the Empire because he's standing over that boy Austin Reeves. He's standing over. How's the 6'11"?
Nobody knows what we're referencing, bro.
Hey, you right. Star Wars fans getting the Lakers and Suns way.
But still, I feel like it really is a raw example of what a revolution is, where they're going to open fire. They're going to kill people, random people just standing by, protesters in the background. It doesn't matter if you're involved in the action or not. And I really like the scene where they're arresting people, because it really did feel like, I felt like we just saw this in real life recently, where they pulled people and they just grabbed people from the crowd, and they pull them back behind the lines of the Imperials, and then they hold back the line again. And I was like, wait, this is exactly how the police handle these kind of protests. And it really showed like the raw example of what it is to be in this situation. And obviously the open fire stuff, to me, I was like, this is brutal. It's raw, but I feel like that's the point of what Tony Gilroy was trying to show us, was showing us that this is how it's going to be. This is how rough it would be if the Empire was to be overtaken. It's going to take a lot to do it.
It's just like we've seen it in countless examples in like foreign nations like Iran, the Armenian genocide, mad other kinds of genocides where it was just there's one that happened in India back in the 1930s, where it's literally 100-some protesters were just out there in the middle, and one dude with a lot of his guns loaded up on top, shouted open fire, and results in over 100 dead bodies and countless others. So it's just things like this are just repeated incidences throughout history. And I think the show does a really brilliant job of showing how authoritarianism enables that facility, and how the individuals in authoritarian governments or fascist governments are orchestrators of that. We see that when we cut back to the ISB and we see, Deidre's really the only one who's kind of like somewhat making sense, because she's like, we don't want to kill everybody. Like, we have to like get questions.
Yeah, but she's just doing it to get to Cassian, though.
Yeah, true.
I don't know, man. That you jumped to it, but I feel like that scene where Deidre was getting jumped, I was like, beat her up.
I mean, we was all feeling like finish her off.
Girl,
yeah, we was all finish her off.
I was rooting for her to go, bro. I was like, I bet she's about to be torn apart. I was like, she should be.
Yeah,
she's awful.
I mean, she's awful, but all of the rest of her peers are like no better, because they just prove themselves to be ruthless killers without like any strategy whatsoever. Even with that attack that we see off screen, which I think is so cool, that they had an entire space battle thing that happened off screen with the Anto Kreger guy, and we see none of it. I would love to see just a short film of just that scenario or something like that. That would be really, really great. But I think her getting jumped and then Surreal coming in, pulling her out. I thought that was so funny, because people have been speculating online. Is Surreal like in love with her? Is he like stalking her? Is he gonna like
Both.
sexually assault her or something, you know what I mean? Or do something
not
weird to her.
that.
Like that's what people, I mean, that's what some people online been, talking about. So I don't know, but it's interesting how, again, I've been going for the twisted romance angle, and I think they kind of leaned into that a little bit there for a second. So I'm with it. I like that.
Yeah, they're like I already told you last 3-4 weeks ago when he first confessed his love to her. I was like, they're gonna be that couple from Missouri outside their homes with the guns, the white couple outside the BLM protests. They're gonna be like, whoa, who are all these people? They're about to be that couple right there. They're crazy, bro. I can't stand them. I can't wait to see their downfall. But yeah, I feel like there was a lot that happened this episode. Obviously, Cassian saving Bix is the big one. Everyone boiling over, fighting back, Brasso fighting back, and then eventually Cassian saving Bix. I like how a homeboy who snitched actually got killed real quick just by standing next to the window. I thought that was a quick little reference to that. Snitches get stitches. Literally, bro. You got glass exploded in your face, bro. You're dead.
And it was hard seeing a black dude give it up snitching like that too. I'm like, bro, you should know better. You should know much better. And then, but also too, seeing the amount of PTSD Bix had from all that torturing and seeing how she was almost unable to shake that, and the way kind of Andor had to really like snap her out of that and break her out of that for a cool minute before she came into that. And really, and from Big's perspective, they alluded to it. She almost thought it was like a dream. She thought, this wasn't even real for a cool second. She dreamt about Andor coming to save her. Now it was really happening. So it's just to show that, somebody who, especially when you first see Bix in the initial first few episodes and you go back and rewatch those, she's strong. She's standing up to her mans, trying to make sure everything gets right, hooking Cassian up with Axis, or who ends up being Luthen. But now it's like she's completely broken, and seeing how the Empire just breaks people down to their absolute rock bottom, it's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely was raw, and the way she was singing the songs through her prison cell was actually it was kind of crazy and wild how she kept with it though. I thought that was a very interesting point, as far as like she still was a part of it even though she wasn't actually there, and even though half her mind is gone already. But either way, Cassian does what he needs to do. He does it kind of easily, taking down death troopers and stormtroopers along the way, takes him to the ship and gets out of the way. The final scene in this entire show, I absolutely loved. I thought it made the whole episode worth it for me, where Cassian pulls the James Bond move, or the Sicario move, whatever you want to call it, the whole waiting in your office kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of Casino Royale, where he's just waiting for him. And I was like, oh, he's going to wait for Luthen and then, kill Luthen, is what I was thinking. Like, he might kill Luthen. And then Luthen waits for him there. And the way he's like, yo, I'm here if you want to kill me, or you could take me in. We can go back to square one and we can start this all over again. And that little smile that Luthen gives, where he's like, yo, this guy's crazy. This is my kind of guy. And then the season just ends. I was like, that's perfect. That's the perfect way to end it. I loved it. What'd you think about it?
I thought that was great. I mean, it plays into what you've said before previously of Andor just being a straight genius. Like, he knows how to play every single person, almost like to manipulative sense, because he knows if he comes up to Luthen and says, I want to be a part of the rebellion, Luthen will just shoot him right there point blank. Like, he doesn't want the extra load. But the fact that, for one, Andor already knew the intentions, already knew that, for the fact Luthen didn't even know that Andor knew that he was on the planet. Andor had to find Luthen's ship, get on that early, and then sneak in to grab him. So Luthen's looking at that like, bro, you were already 10 steps ahead of me in this whole thing. You already know where you want to go.
Different.
Different. Yeah. So I just thought I thought all of that aspect was just super, super fire all the way around. And
it really, no, it really was like a Luthen realizing like, yo, this guy really is that dude. Like, he's that dude. He's the homie that's really going to help me overthrow the Empire in the long run. But overall thoughts on season 1 RB3, because I feel like season 1 as a whole of Andor is something really special. But what did you think?
Man, season 1 has been absolutely phenomenal for me. This is my favorite TV show of the year, probably. I think it really elevates Star Wars to a whole nother level, and I hope they continue down this journey of getting high class Academy Award winning or Academy Award tier filmmakers and writers into the Star Wars universe and letting them just go buck wild, because this is some of the best TV ever. And I hope it has a good run for Emmys. I know it's going to start airing on ABC and Hulu pretty soon, so hopefully it picks up more viewership that way. But yeah, this is it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it really is incredible what this show has done with Star Wars, what the show has done with characters like Cassian, what the show has done with just television in general. Like you said, this is the best show I've seen on TV, and this is coming from the biggest House of the Dragon fan, right? I love House of the Dragon, but I still think this is better. It delivered so much in a perfect manner and in the perfect time frame. I just really feel like it's such a clutch show, and it demonstrated the power of a character like a Cassian Andor, someone who doesn't have superpowers, someone who doesn't have the Force, someone who doesn't have even Mandalorian armor, which I feel like is something that, Din Djarin has, and he's a powerful character as well. But this guy's he's just a G. He's just a gangster. Like, the homie is just built different. Like you said, he's a genius. He's raw. He's a thief. Like, homie is one of the best Star Wars characters in my opinion. And this show just proved it with this entire season. I can't wait for season 2, man. And I feel like there's so much there for season 2 with Luthen, with Clea, with Vel, with Cinta. Like, there's so much we can eventually get to, but I feel like season 2 is going to get to it. And I'm so excited to get to it. But RB3, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3 and stream timestamp on Amazon Prime.
And you can follow me at Squad Leader Ace on Twitter and Instagram as well. You can follow us at First Cut if you haven't done so already. We're going to be back talking more Star Wars on this channel, so make sure you guys are tuning in. I'm going to be trying getting in some more guests to start interviewing them, so make sure you guys tune around for that. But either way, guys, for Sabacc the Block and for the First Cut crew, we're going to be peacing out, so peace.